Today is Wednesday, June 17th, 2020. The time is 9:02 a.m. This is I guess we could say it's a special meeting. It's supposed to be routine, which is our elected officials meeting, but of course it doesn't happen every month, usually by popular demand. But anyway, I am officially calling this meeting to order. Attending are Commissioners Duncan, Brooks, and Fillios. I'd also like to welcome NWPOA President, is that fair to say, Jeff Tyler. Thanks, Jeff. And so we'll move on to the agenda. Do we have any changes? I didn't think so. First item, which was to introduce our new assessor and kind of get his feeling on what he's discovered thus far and anything he chooses to share with us. Welcome, Bela Kovacs. Bela, please come forward, sir, or take the mic, either way. Yeah, there you go.
Pleasure for me to stand. Well, Bela Kovacs. I'm still pinching myself. I'm very pleased to be here. I think we have a great organization here, and I'm just honored. I'm honored to serve, to have the privilege to serve, and I want to like to thank each commissioner again for their vote of confidence in appointing me to this position. I have a great team in the assessor's office. I'm learning a lot. I'm humbled by the experience, but I'm just very eager to roll up my sleeves and get in there and help and do my part. So looking forward to going through the process of the Board of Equalization. I've got the manual, I'm learning through that, and I'll be reaching out to each one of you to see what I can do to work collaboratively to accomplish the business of the county.
Good. What strikes you about the job?
What strikes me?
Yeah, what strikes you most, or what do you think is most challenging, or?
Well, I think public service, each aspect of an office in public service carries with it unique, I'm going to call them challenges or opportunities. I think certainly everybody wants to have their taxes lowered. The reality is the government services that we all receive, that we all benefit from, comes at cost. We all have to pay for it. What is appealing to me in the role in the hat that I would wear as assessor is the aspect of equity, working towards applying the tax burden on an equal basis, and so that appeals to my focus on ethics and doing what's right by the taxpayer. So looking forward to that.
Good. Any questions for Bela?
No.
Nobody? Soon you're going to be participating in your first BOE. And what's fascinating is it'll be my, I think, fourth. I would say probably 95% easily of the appeals go in favor of the assessor, which really is a credit to the quality of work that's being done. But it's also very challenging for the residents because, most of them in fact, the vast majority are coming in without appraisal knowledge, clearly. And so it's difficult for them frequently to make the case, but then again, you'll find it fascinating when you see the amount of work and the detail that's involved, especially when you get into some of the commercial, which is a whole other category. But anyway, you have a great staff. Joe does a great job, and he's got good people. Just keep them.
Yes, absolutely.
Thanks, Bela. Appreciate it. Okay, so let's go on to what I guess is foremost in many people's minds, which is property tax relief proposal. I'll just say a couple things about it. The governor made a decision, I guess it was the governor who made it, yeah, it was, to distribute some, I want to say it's 200 million, but I hear 188, is it 180? Anyway, somewhere around 200 million. Steve? 188 to the counties in the form of property tax relief. The provision is, or the proviso is, that we cannot take the 3% this year. In fact, I don't believe we can take any fraction of it. And it is targeted toward reimbursement of wages primarily for, I guess the best way to say it is first responders, that is to say public safety, which is in our case our KCSO, EMS, firefighters. I don't know if I left anybody else out.
Panhandle Health.
Panhandle Health, thank you, PhD. And so, as I said, the provision is that we not take the 3%. what will be reimbursed, those identifiable and relevant charges will be reimbursed at the rate of 103%, is what the state will be giving us. So we're in the process of, I guess, identifying those relevant expenses. There's more detail to emerge. I did attend the governor's presence here last Monday. I was there, the city, Coeur d'Alene was there, I think Post Falls, Hayden was there, and he basically talked about it briefly. His treasury guy, Alex, was there as well. He elaborated a little bit. I don't know if the other districts are going to participate. Our EMS has decided not to. They're going to take their 3%, which incidentally does not come out to a lot of money. I think it's $75,000 or $80,000 for them. But they're getting another grant as part of this bigger package that the governor has. And I can't speak for the fire districts, but it's the same rules for every participating or every identifiable district. The other thing was I did participate last week, and this was last Thursday, on the conference call with the governor's, I guess it's his COVID team that he had assembled at the start of this pandemic. And again, nothing really new came out except that the state has decided to contract with a firm to expedite the unemployment claims, because like so many other states, we've fallen behind because the systems just aren't capable of handling the very large volume. And so that's what's being done. No other additional news regarding the property tax relief, but I'll ask Leslie and Bill if you guys want to jump in.
No, I just, if Steve has any additional information about how they're going to implement this, I don't know if you have anything since last time we spoke.
A lot of things are still up in the air. It's going to come down to how it's going to be executed.
Right.
Many questions. Back to, I guess, I have a couple of questions for Chris. You mentioned KCEMS has already decided not to participate.
Yeah, it's not official yet. I guess the board has to meet, but because they're getting money from another source. And so they feel that in order to handle, their particular budget requirement, they're going to take their 3%, which, as I said, for them is not a heck of a lot of money. I think it's somewhere around $75,000 or $80,000. Yeah.
Just a question, and I don't know who might be able to answer this, but so like KCEMSS is not taking theirs. Does that roll back into the pool that's distributed to the other first responder or other entities for first responders pool, or does it go back to the state?
Honestly, I don't know. That's a good question.
And
I'll find out.
The way it's going to work out is, I asked that specific question. So if it's oversubscribed, they're going to come up with allocating a smaller amount. Because theoretically, there could be more than $188 million claimed by the different taxing districts. If you choose to not participate or later reverse your decision and not participate, that money goes back into the pool and it's reallocated.
Okay.
Okay.
That's the current conversation that I overheard.
Right, right.
Someone from the governor's office said.
Yeah.
Just curious.
Yeah, now obviously it does not affect new growth. We can still take the new growth, which this year I think you're estimating it, was it 1.2 million? Thereabouts. And of course fees and grants, which are apart from this, yeah.
And then you mentioned, I just
Go ahead,
wanted
Steve.
to- I'm understanding kind of what the conversation is. On the public health, it's our contribution to the health district, right? That we can include in our ask
So
to participate.
my understanding is it's the cost of wages for those employees.
Wages.
And so it's whatever we're going, so essentially, yes, what you're saying, except it won't be the full amount. I mean,
Percentage of their wage, okay.
yeah.
All right. Do we have any idea what that amount might be?
I don't think that we've even started.
I didn't realize that we could do that, so I guess we'll reach out to Penn.
Yeah, to get that. And they should have that information pretty handily available in their wages, so.
Another question.
Vince, yeah,
It
please.
impacts my office. Does this apply to all the sheriff's office employees, or just the deputies, or road deputies, patrol, detention deputies, dispatchers?
I didn't hear any specifics in that regard. They're working on a definition of what these first responders are going to be.
Because obviously that makes a huge
Yeah.
Huge difference. Yeah, the broader, the better.
At this point,
Yeah.
yeah, at this point, it's little more than conceptual. They know the organizations that they want to address. So the specifics as to who in each organization, like to your point, you're non-sworn, for example. I don't know that they've identified that yet, yeah.
And I mean, I guess I would argue with the governor that those 911 dispatchers have been there through this whole thing, and they're certainly on the front lines. So-
Yeah, my guess is they would be, but that's speculation on my part.
But it also assists the rest of the county.
Yeah, absolutely,
By making up the difference.
absolutely.
And you're right, the broader the better.
And, go ahead, Steve, you want to say something?
I was, and I don't want to put anybody on the spot, but do we have, and I'm leaning this way. Yeah. Do we have any indicative rate or amount that Kootenai County might qualify for?
Well, I was actually in contact with your deputy yesterday, and so far, I've projected from March 1st to the end of this year. It's an estimate, I'm fairly comfortable with it, but I've included, and the guidance, the money is originally from the US Treasury. So the US Treasury
That's
is
correct,
kind of
yes.
where the guidance is coming from. So if we look to that guidance, it says, law enforcement, employees, healthcare workers that are actively mitigating or involved in dealing with the pandemic. So that's not real clear, and the guidance that Lori sent me said, defined law enforcement, but there's no definition on the website that they refer to yet. So just using the Treasury's description, I pulled all of the sheriff's office and then pulled out the obvious ones: driver's license, animal control, auto shop, but tried to take a broad view of that. And then I also added in AMP, juvenile probation, juvenile detention. And that number from March 1st to the end of this year is around 16 million. I didn't include any non-sworn unless they were in that department. I just took total payroll. So just at a very high level, because we don't really have the definition of who's in and who's out. But now I can reach out to Panhandle Health, get their numbers, and then once we've solidified workers' comp, I can project from October 1st until December 30th for that other piece of it. So that's kind of in the works, but about 16 million is where we're at right now with those items that I pulled into that population for consideration. But as that gets clarified, then I can modify that.
Now, when you say 16 million, is that their annual payroll, or is that for the period in question, March through December?
That's from 3/1
to 12/30. 12/31.
September 30, which is that piece of this 2020 budget, and that's wages and benefits.
Okay.
Yeah,
The proposal, though, is supposed to cover through December 31.
right, so once we get our
Oh, that's
final
right, okay.
rates for workers' comp, then I can calculate more accurately that first quarter, basically, of our fiscal year and have an accurate.
So from your, okay, so the 16 million is the total payroll for the qualifying organizations for that period? Or is it what you feel is the qualifying amount?
It's the calculation for those wages and benefits for the population of employees that seem to fit.
Okay,
Treasury,
that's a good point.
US Treasury
Okay,
definition.
thank you.
That's yet to be clarified. So it's pretty loose.
That's
but
okay.
That's kind of where we're at, but it will get larger as we add to that population of employees.
If that number is correct, then that's what, 2.4 million per month, for another 3 months. So another 7+ million,
So you'd be up around 23 million?
22, 23, 24 million. If, she's having to make some assumptions, so I don't want to pin any numbers on that. Did you include the coroner in that? I know there's conversation.
No, I didn't include the coroner, so, yeah, I'm not sure of that one either. So, yeah, we're still looking at who's in, who's out.
Go ahead, Steve.
That's
Yeah, which is gonna be about, what, 50? Or currently 49, I believe, yeah.
So, big number.
It is a big number, and if it comes out to be 23 million, multiply that by 1.03, right?
Yes.
Jack it up by 3%, and we're gonna be up close to 23 million, 23.7. So we'd get an uplift of about 700,000 from the state, so to speak. Yes, Joe?
Are those funds reserved only for the personnel costs associated with those actions? So,
Wages only, Joe.
Yep,
for those positions, not wages in general?
That
correct.
is correct.
Yep, first responder wages.
Is it wages or wages and benefits?
It's wages and benefits.
Wages
Loaded.
and benefits, loaded.
Makes
Okay.
sense.
Yeah,
So while it's
Absolutely.
half of our property tax
revenue.
revenue budget, it's earmarked only solely for those purposes. The rest of the funds necessary to operate the remainder of the county, or those functions, operations, et cetera, are at zero or
Right.
So Steve, correct me if this doesn't sound right. My understanding is, let's just say it comes out to be half. Then what happens is the state pays us that half of money, and then the property tax payers only pay what the remainder is. So it's almost like a revenue replacement, if that makes sense.
Go ahead, Ben.
well, revenue replacement in the sense of it. I'm just hearing that it's approximately half of our property tax burden,
Correct.
but it can only be used in this, within these boundaries,
That's true.
then it is the other half of the property tax revenue able to carry the burdens outside of those
Okay.
boundaries?
Well, yes.
Let me see if I can address that.
Yeah,
because I think
go
you're
ahead.
missing something.
Yeah.
This whole process that we're going through to quantify how much that we can claim.
Yeah, take the mic, Jeff.
Is it on?
Yeah, you're good.
This process where they go through and calculate how much the county can claim from this property tax reduction fund of $188 million is simply a mechanism that is to be used to quantify how much the property tax reduction for local property tax owners are going to benefit. It theoretically shouldn't be, actually a conversation in your mind about how our budget is impacted. This is how much our local property tax
Right.
are going to
It's not
benefit.
the budget.
We have to pass that through to them.
Yep.
On condition of passing that on to the property tax owners, we then agree, after that, not to increase our property tax for this next upcoming
Fiscal year.
fiscal year.
So
So
we're
what we're doing
frozen.
is frozen at the property tax that we had approved last year.
So-
Plus new growth.
Plus new growth, all right, that's right, the new growth is unaffected. So we're at 49 million this year. Of our $101.6 million budget, 49 mil is from taxation. We are frozen at that level for the next fiscal year. We cannot increase that if we participate in this program. If you choose not to, then it's business as usual. But to go one step further, Steve, let's say hypothetically that figure, just to keep it simple, is 24 mil. 23.7, let's call it 24. So if you subtract the 24 from the 49, that leaves 25 mil. Is that basically all our residents will be taxed for in fiscal 21? Is that a correct?
On that basis, I think that's correct.
So
But
to
we're
now,
still- We're still getting the 49 million, right?
Yep.
we're still getting the 49 million, that is correct. It's just that they're giving us, instead of the 23, we're getting 23.7. I'm calling it 24. So what's interesting, if you want to take it down to the property individual parcel level, I believe, and Joe, you can correct me if I'm wrong, that we have roughly 95,000 parcels in the county. So if we're getting 24 million bucks, that the property taxpayers are, that's the relief they're getting, divide the 95,000 into the 24 mil, and that's the average benefit to the parcel. I don't know what that is.
There are still conversations, it's 95 parcels, there's like 80 6,000 taxable parcels.
Okay, I'm sorry, yeah, go ahead.
They have not decided yet whether the allocation is going to be based on a market value of each of the properties, or whether it's going to be per parcel.
Those are the details, right.
And that part, the accounting of that number, that
Yes.
9587, that includes personal property accounts, operating property accounts, et cetera, and so forth. It's only on real property versus what type of a property accounting is. And then to take an average, that's.
I don't think, yeah, I don't think they can do
Nothing
that.
more than an indication at this point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
One of the criticisms that I think they're receiving is operating property, large commercial property will be the biggest beneficiaries of the program, and not those I think they intended to benefit, which would be the homeowners at the lower end of the market.
Right.
So that's why they're having a conversation. Is it per parcel? Is it based on market value? Decision that we make.
Still a lot of unanswered questions, Joe, a lot of detail.
yeah.
But where all this originates from is the 1.25 or 1.25 billion that the state is getting from the federal government, right? And then from that, the governor decided to distribute $40 million. Now, that's a different bucket. That's not the property tax relief. But then we have the 188 million, which is still part of that 1.25 billion that applies to what we're discussing here, the specific property tax relief. So it's the state
Another thing
share.
I shared, I think, I don't know, all you guys got a copy, I talked to you about this, Chris. I'm still concerned that the legal interpretation by our Attorney General and the Governor's Office of the viability of this program that actually qualifies is a risk that the county needs to consider, because I think it's wholly possible that we get the AG's opinion and the governor says, yes, we're going forward. We agree to go ahead and
And do this?
keep the budget flat.
Mhm.
We may even get distribution of the money, because I know the state treasurer has the money in hand. So we get money,
Mhm.
and the next year, there's an audit or whatever, and the legislature comes back, I'm talking about Congress, and says, nope, you guys misinterpreted the CARES Act. It does not qualify. We want our money back.
Ah,
Okay, so now I've asked this question of the governor's office, and they said, well, the state's on the hook. Now, we can kind of go through what might happen if that occurs. You know, revenue sharing and the sales tax is diminished, pay that money back to the government. So the governor and his office are adamant that this qualifies, which is great. Maybe we can rely on that, but I just want you guys to be aware that is a possibility, and then you have to have some comfort that if you choose to participate, that could be an eventuality. So,
Are there any other states doing something similar to what I was trying to do?
not that I'm aware of, but I haven't asked that question.
Dena, did you have something?
I just wanted to just give maybe a high-level view of the math. because
Yeah,
that's-
please.
That's what I keep
please.
twisting around with. So say the number we get is $24 million. Okay, the entire pot is $188 million
Correct.
for the whole state.
Yes.
So how do you distribute $188 million among the entire state and somehow we get 24 million? I just don't see that
That's-
happening.
That's a good question.
So, I mean, because our budget is 101 million, I mean, this pot of money is less than 2 years of operating for this county, so it's a tiny, tiny bit of money that they're passing out among an entire state. So the calculation makes sense to at least put a stake in the ground and say, this allocation is gonna be based on this calculation. But I don't know if the actual number that we will get to distribute is gonna be what we're calculating. It seems like it would be apportioned based on that as like a point of reference rather than an actual dollar amount. But again, like
And-
Steve said, we don't know.
Your point, you know, you make a good point, because if you add Ada, forget the others, just add Ada to the mix.
Yeah.
And their population is what, pushing, I think, almost 500,000.
Yeah.
What is their budget? Is it 200 million? Is it twice ours?
They're not gonna participate though.
Oh, they're not?
No.
Okay.
Well, I've heard that they're thinking of not participating. If you go back to 2018 numbers, I think there's total property taxes collected by the 3 taxing districts that currently qualify. So you got cities, counties, and ambulatory districts. That was $1.1 billion collected statewide. Now, if Kootenai County's percentage of property taxes is correct, almost half, then that suggests what she's speaking is half of $1.1 billion would be a
It's nowhere near 188.
plus, right?
Yeah.
Now, Ada is talking about not, actually, it's not Ada, I think it's Boise.
Oh, the
Boise's
city?
thinking about not
Oh, this is-
The city.
Yeah, the city. I'm hearing a lot of the rural counties won't participate because they don't have the expenditures.
To qualify?
So, does the math work out? I don't know. There might be, this is where, when you guys make a decision, you need to make sure that, okay, as of today, the numbers are, but they've stated explicitly that they can change the formula, and if it's oversubscribed, your anticipated share of this number might go down drastically.
That's interesting.
But with that said, I still think the number for Kootenai County is going to be significant.
And if Ada were to participate, and you assume that their payroll is the same percentage that ours is, or the qualifying amount, the property tax calculation, that would put them at 100 million collected in property tax, which means their piece of the pie would be 103 mil. So take their 103, add our 24, there's 127 million. That leaves about 60 million for everybody else. Uh-oh,
For 42 more
Talk about
counties.
42 other counties.
Right, not even
Kootenai,
counting the
Post
cities.
Falls, I think
And
they're all
cities,
going to
yes.
Cities, ambulance, yeah, so to me, it seems like it whittles down. And then the other part of it too, that I just have to throw in there, because it's the other part that's gnawing away, is the devil's in the details. How do we administer this?
Yes.
And what will the cost be to administer it? And is the state gonna help us pay for that? Because it could be substantial. It could be more than what we're giving back.
That's why it's the 103%. That extra 3% is supposed to be,
Yeah.
103% of whatever number qualifies.
So a lot
Yeah,
of unknowns.
yeah, a lot of unknowns. Yep.
And to add to the, to the discussion, so the legislature convenes in January, and they still have their anti-property tax fervor that's going to carry over from last year. So if we sign up for the program, we freeze our property taxes, we get 103%. Now we go into next fiscal year, and the legislature decides, well, we're going to freeze it again. Oh, really? Okay, what happens then? I don't know that anything rational is going to come out. So that we could have a real issue on our hands. This county can probably weather it better than most, but for some of the other counties, it's going to be disastrous. I mean, it'll be hard for us, but still. And I don't know what the legislature's going to pass, but there were, 3 different proposals this year? One was to go to a straight, I think, consumption tax, 11%, eliminate the property. Another proposal was to freeze the property tax, which is essentially what this is doing. And there was a third, and the specifics escape me. Maybe it was a more limited, but if they completely revamp the system and go to a consumption tax, 11% sales tax, no property tax, that's a whole nother dimension. That's almost hard to calculate, but that's more like, I think, what the European nations do, right? They have a consumption tax. Yeah. Just thought I'd throw that in. But,
If I can mention a couple more things, the guidelines that were announced is that each taxing district will need to make a decision by July
is it 17?
17?
17th.
17th, I think.
Now,
Yeah.
maybe that date will move, but you guys are already inside of a month now.
Huh?
So,
I think that the real key is going to be some of the definitions. I mean, without that, you know, we
Yep.
really don't know. I mean,
There are a lot of questions.
Shot in the
I
dark.
think that there's arguments that probation departments are members of the court, not first responders, and they may not be, be able to be funded, which certainly changes the numbers. I think there's, I think guidance, either whether it's Department of Treasury or the state, is going to be critical in this decision. And Chris, you bring up a good point. What's the legislature going to do, and what's the flavor of the legislature? And does that hamstring us down the road that, we can't move on? And as we continue to grow, we have to have that ability to move forward, and we all know that. So, though, to Steve's point, I agree with the, you start looking at the largest entities around the state, and then it drops off real fast.
Yes,
And,
yes,
I look at someplace like Clark County,
yes.
with their sheriff and 2 deputies, probably not a huge impact. Places like that, they're a couple of $2,000 isn't going to be a big thing. And those are probably the entities that won't take it because it does hamstring and whatnot. So, I don't know, 185 or 188 sounds like a lot of money, but it's probably not statewide. But it'll really kind of depend on how everybody looks at this, and I hope that, all the other boards and elected officials are having that same discussion about what's the legislature going to do, does this hamstring us for the future? It's a nice gesture, but it could have a lot of negative downstream consequences.
Your concerns, for sure. Dena, do you want to add anything?
No, just kind of holding my breath and waiting to see if we can get some definitions, because it's just not making a whole lot of sense right now.
So if our deadline is the 17th of next month, July, what's their deadline to get the specifics to us? Who knows, right?
Last week.
Yeah, the 10th, they were supposed to have some.
Oh, last week?
Specifics on the 10th, but I scoured their website, I haven't seen anything.
Steve, you were at the same meeting I was at a week ago Monday. Did you glean anything from the governor's pitch?
I felt that the cities there, at that point in time, were fully supportive of this and are planning to participate.
Right.
I think, if I'm going to speak candidly.
Yeah, go ahead.
I think that the governor wants to apply all of the CARES Act money and get it out into the hands of every Idahoan there is. And this is an avenue that he wants to choose. I applaud him for that, but the difficulties are going to be very challenging, especially in my office. I do think this is going to happen. I think what's going to happen, though, is that it's going to be dealt with not as they intended. It's going to be 44 different ways, and it's possibly going to be causing a lot of headaches.
Do you, and I guess this question applies to Dean as well, do you expect a line item credit on their tax bill? Do you think that's the way this will?
That's what they want to do, but the challenges are probably, I don't know if it can be done, at least here in Kootenai County. It will incur significant costs if we can do it. We've looked at workarounds. I have some other candid comments about why they want to put it on the tax notices themselves, but I'll save that for another time. Yes, if we are forced, now this is separate from whether the county wants to participate in the tax relief itself.
Mhm.
Communicating the messages per parcel is a different conversation, which is probably beyond this venue.
Okay.
The challenges are going to be significant.
Okay. Yeah, Jen?
I think maybe having a conversation with people like Representative Mike Moyle, because you were talking, what's the future going to look like?
Good point.
Maybe start reaching out to them, because I know they're probably in contact with the governor and this task force that he's put together, a committee, and see, are they planning on still doing something, presenting something next session with this in the works? If county society does.
Well, the committee should have been meeting this entire time, the Committee on Tax Reform or property
Yeah, that's a good
tax.
point.
And, because I know they spent all last year just learning what property tax is and how it's collected. So I'm hoping that they are kind of up and running and do have something. But I can reach out to Representative Moyle because I have his information, so.
Yeah, Ben.
Another thought too is, since this is coming through the governor's office, if the governor, would, maybe lean towards vetoing anything that came across in light of this one-time money, at least for a year, and say, no, I won't approve anything that comes from my desk from the legislature this year, because of this one-time money. That's just no matter.
That's true. Good point.
But I agree, Mike's probably the first guy to reach out to.
Anyone else? I guess we can call this public comment. Jeff, would you like to speak? By all means.
Jeff Tyler, 5892 West Harbor Drive, Coeur d'Alene. As the chairman of Northwest Property Owners Alliance and also a precinct committeeman, I'm here just basically to reinforce the community's wish for property tax relief. And this is so exciting to hear. I've already heard this, but to get more information today is great. I can see it's going to be complicated deliberations that you guys are going to have over the amount here. But, the most benefit you can get to property taxes payers, even if it's a portion, and then maybe carry forward the rest, just so you can feel safe about it. And I'm sure the property taxpayers will understand that because they're going to be getting a benefit,
Yeah.
I think would be maybe one week you could go about it. So in other words, if worst case scenario, you might only get 17 million instead of 24 million. Maybe you can do the 17 million amount now, and then if the rest of it comes in, maybe push it towards next year.
To the next fiscal
Just
year.
a quick idea I had. And I heard you mention about the disproportionate amount for business versus homeowners. A lot of businesses, they've been suffering through all this, and they have employees. So they may get a bigger amount, but, that also helps with employees. Also, as far as businesses go, that probably includes rentals, which I'm an owner of rentals. And I've been paying more and more every year for property tax and for power, water, sewer, garbage, and all these different things. So we end up having to raise our rents just because of those. So it could keep me from having to raise rents for a while if I would have a windfall. But basically, I just wanted to reinforce, with the other elected officials here, that seems most government workers these days, county, state, federal, have all fully gotten their salaries, fully gotten their benefits, where all of the taxpayers have been suffering. A lot of them have been suffering. So I just want you to keep that in mind, that even though you may not feel it so much, you see it, but there's people that feel it and they live it. So that's really the reason I came to make my comment for today. But I thank you guys for, this is a great discussion, and I'm glad I'm here to listen in.
Thank you for coming. Appreciate it. Anyone else? Okay, 9:41, meeting adjourned. Thank you.